distractions that come with being one of the final two teams left standing as the Super Bowl is underway here on Sunday. And joining us now is the voice of the Philadelphia Eagles, Merrill Reese. Merrill, how are you today, buddy? Thanks for the time.
I am well, thank you. Very well.
When are you going to when are you going to get down to New Orleans?
I'm still waiting to hear, either Thursday or Friday.
Okay. And you've been to a lot of Super Bowls, and when it comes to distractions, how do you avoid them? I mean, how does a coach tell his team to avoid them? Because it's got to be tough, especially.
Well, pretty much. He has practices. He holds practices as he does all the time. And then they have the appointed press conferences that they have every day, and you find players at different tables, and he has to tell them just to be pretty basic. Don't give away any secrets, any keys to the safe, But it's pretty bland. You're never going to get anything out of any of these press conferences with either the coaches or the players. When you've been to one, you've been to them all.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is Kelvin Moore a distraction at all with all the talk of New Orleans?
What kind of talk?
Kelvin Moore, would he be a distraction with the talk of him possibly leaving?
No. Kelvin Moore is one of the most professional people you'd ever want to meet. It appears to everybody that he's going to be the next head coach of the Saints. I mean, that's been written, that the other candidates were basically told that they are pursuing Kellen Moore. I would be almost surprised at this point if he doesn't take it. But knowing Kellen Moore, the only thing he's thinking about right now is getting this team ready for Sunday. That's all that's how he is. He's very, very professional.
How does he tweak his offense for this game against the Kansas City Chiefs, Merrill? We had a terrific game in the desert a couple of years ago. Was a 3-point win by the Chiefs. Do they go back and look at that, or because it was now a couple of years ago, it's not, I guess, current, and so they wouldn't even take a peek at that?
I think they take a peek at everything. I think they go back at the Monday night game they played against Kansas City last year. I think they look at everything, but they do it with the idea of seeing what they can get out of it, maybe some individual evaluations. I mean, they'll take a look at Kansas City all season, but at the same time, they're not going to go overboard with that stuff. They know that this is a different team. I mean, this football team, guys, has 8 guys on the defense who didn't play in that last Super Bowl. 8
wow.
in a short period of time, in 2 years. So it's different. Jalen Hurts is just as hardworking, just as diligent, but he's got another couple of years of experience under his belt. The team last year did not have players like Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, who have been outstanding. They didn't have Zach Vaughn, who should be the defensive player of the year. They didn't have somebody by the name of Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
So it's a different team, and there are changes in Kansas City too.
Merrill, it's interesting you bring up about the different changes. You think of you going way back for many years, the Dick Vermeil Super Bowl, the Andy Reid Super Bowl, the Doug Peterson Super Bowl, now the Sirianni Super Bowl twice with him. You think of those 4 coaches taking the Eagles to the Super Bowls. Was there a commonality amongst those 4, or are they completely different coaches as they lead their teams to Super Bowl challenges?
You forgot to mention that I was there for the Bronco-Nagurski Super Bowl.
Yeah. I didn't want to age you too much.
Was that Franklin Field there, Merrill? Franklin Field?
It was before Franklin Field.
Merrill.
Let me tell you this. You're talking about the guys who took the Super.
Yes.
I'm getting a call on the other side, but that's just ignore the ring. It will stop. It's spam, I'm sure. But you look at Dick Vermeil, who took them to their first Super Bowl, and Dick was tremendous. He was very, very intense, on top of everything. Then the next person to take them to a Super Bowl was Andy, and then there was all that to do going on. Would T.O. be able to play, and how big a difference would that make? And is Donovan ready? And then the third person to take them to a Super Bowl was Doug. And Doug did it kind of casually. Doug didn't make a big deal out of it. He wasn't giving any great big pep talks. all he did was all he did was put in something called the Philly Special.
Yeah.
Which I didn't even know anything about. The funny story about that, I don't know if I've ever told this to you guys. We're doing the game, and the Eagles are in a 4th and 1 from the 1 with a second to go in the first half. And the Eagles are going to be kicking off to the Patriots to start the second half. And I made the remark that I don't understand this. You've got to take the 3 points and have momentum going into the half. If you do something foolish here and get stacked up, the momentum goes the other way. And, of course, the Patriots get the ball to start the second half. And so they pull off this crazy thing that we will remember for the rest of our lives, with the pass going into the end zone to Nick Foles. And Mike Quick said to me, well, that's why you're up here and Doug is down there. and then in the locker room with the celebration going on, Doug came over and gave me a hug. And I said, that is the worst call I've ever seen with the best result.
Hey, Nick Sirianni, week 6, the shouting at the fans, and I'm a big Nick Sirianni fan. He's been criticized. The Philly crowd is so passionate and very, at times, overcritical. But, I know they're going to win this
4
game.
minutes.
Will that just put him in place? Will he be up there?
By the way, you're knowing they're going to win this game. I can't say what that does to me. Not even worry about it. I will sleep better tonight because they're going to win this game.
Well, come on, man. I'm a fan too. Born in Philly. I've been listening to you since you started. So I got to be. It brings out the fan in me. But let's just say, but for Nick, will a win put him at the same level as a Dick Vermeil?
Well, you're
Tough
talking
one.
about a coach who coached 4 years and has gotten his team to all 4 years they've been in the playoffs, and his second Super Bowl in that 4-year period, second Super Bowl in 3 years. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And but Dick Vermeil has been living in this area, has been a personality in this area for a long, long time. And Dick Vermeil did win a Super Bowl with the St. Louis Rams once upon a time. So Dick is so popular here, and I think maybe Nick will be one day too. I mean, his popularity has grown a lot. And they're talking about the yelling at the fans. He was really, I think that was after the Cleveland game. He was just having some fun, and that he was not cursing at the fans or any of that stuff. I think a couple of years ago he was incensed at a game in Indianapolis where he went at it with the fans. But with this group, he has more fun. But I think that since he got so much heat after that little episode, he has never done it again. And I don't think he ever will. I think he learned from it, and he said, okay, I'm emotional, but I've got to put a little bit of a cap on it. So he doesn't do that anymore. And I think he's grown as a coach.
About 2 minutes.
He is not as throw caution to the wind as he was for a while. I think there are every now and then he will. I mean, there was a play in the Washington game last week where they had right in the third quarter, early in the third quarter, where the Commanders were still very much in it, and the Eagles had a 4th and 5 from the Commanders' 48-yard line. And I said, I really think in this situation there's a lot to lose. They ought to punt, and they didn't. And not only did they not throw a short, high percentage,
Minute and a half.
Jalen Hurts went downfield 30 yards, but threw the most magnificent pass into the hands of A.J. Brown. So he will still do things like that. But I don't think he would do what he did early in the season, which was on the first drive against Atlanta. They had a 4th and goal from the 6. And that's the first drive of the game. I think if that were to come up again, he'd take the field goal.
Hey, Merrill, my last question for you. When you think of how things ended last year, as bad as they did, and obviously getting Saquon Barkley help, but was there somewhat of a mantra, chip on their shoulder, boulder on their shoulder to get back to where they were 2 years ago?
I don't think so. I honestly think what they did was they assembled this year, and they came up with 2 new coordinators. So you had Vic Fangio in there, and believe me, he has made a big, big difference.
Sure.
And Kellen Moore has done an excellent job with this team, although I'm not blaming Brian Johnson last year because Nick was pretty much running the offense, and he said last year at the end of the season, when all was said and done, that I think that we've got to move on because the offense had grown stale. So I don't think they were worrying about what went wrong in 2022. Instead, they were or 2023. I think they were thinking about what do we have to do to be the best we can possibly be, and take it from there. But the one thing they did, and they continue to do, is have the most unphysical training camp. There's no tackling to the ground. The sessions are an hour and a half in and out. Now, they're well orchestrated, and they're very, very meticulous about everything, but they're short, and they're not physical. And there are no regulars playing any of the preseason games. So what happens is you go into those first 4 games in September, and that's really an extension of the preseason. But after the bye, they caught fire. Now, keep this in mind. Is that the right way? I honestly was a critic of that. Not so much publicly, but I talk to guys and I say, I can't believe this team is going to be prepared for the season. But when you look at Detroit, and everybody loves Dan Campbell, you look at that team, when they played
Clear to wrap whenever.
in that playoff game, they had 18 players on injured reserve. The Eagles are almost at full strength. The Eagles had very few injuries this season. So maybe in this NFL, the answer is don't beat them up early.
He's Merrill Reese, the voice of the Philadelphia Eagles. Merrill, thank you. We know you get so many calls, especially Super Bowl week. Thanks for making some time for us out here in Phoenix. We always appreciate you, man.
Always for you guys. You know that.
Thank you, Merrill. That's Merrill Reese, the play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Eagles, my favorite, and I'm so glad he took some time for us today. Coming up, our G2G Protein Bar game changers from the weekend. We also got Craig Fouey coming up. But when we get to our G2G, we're going to talk about what happened on Saturday with Arizona and Arizona State and what Bobby Hurley did with his team. He's getting a lot of criticism for it. We'll talk about that next. It's Rock and Minute with Jimmy